Hey, welcome back to the Left, Right, and Center show. Today, it's just the center and the right. Chris, unfortunately, had something come up, couldn't make it. But I think we're going to have a good one for you today. The two big topics we're going to talk about are the women in military topic. It kind of came up again with Tucker Carlson's little clip. And then the other one we're going to talk about is the upcoming George Floyd trial. Well, Derek Chauvin trial in relation to the George Floyd murder. So yeah,
right. Nothing controversial. We're gonna keep it super low key tonight.
yeah, totally. I mean, there's not a whole lot of new information right now about the Derek Chauvin trial, but maybe we'll try and do a recap and talk about what we do know that's come out maybe since we last talked, and kind of prepare for what's likely to be, no matter the result coming out of it, a massive political impact.
Yeah.
Whichever way it goes, right?
Yeah.
So, but before we get started, news and memes. What you got?
Word. Okay. So most of this podcast today, God, I must have had a terrible work week because most of the stuff I have today was like aimed squarely at Chris. So like a lot of, I think especially the Chauvin trial. Well, actually, what I'm about to talk about, but the Chauvin trial, I was mostly. We've already gone over this a little bit, and this is old news, but the trial's coming up. So, I wanted to have Chris on, and then we would talk about what the two different sides are thinking. So we're probably not going to dwell on that one as much. But this one would have been specifically pointed at him, and maybe it's better that he's not here because this clip that I'm about to show you is something that sort of it makes me see red. It's one of the things that makes me start thinking make me start reaching for the AR-15. Like, okay, it's time to rebel. We need a new country or something. Like, it's some bad stuff.
That's intense. That's
right. So a little bit of background. So what I'm about to show you is this is a video from Rage Against the Machine. They haven't really been relevant in a long time, but apparently they're full-blown Marxist social justice warriors at this point. They put out a video back in January. And basically what it is, it's a video of kids going to a sort of a racial justice summer camp, right? Where they're educated about how they're white and that's bad, right? And it just like goes through, and this whole thing is just so insanely social justice warrior racist, right? It's like, it's telling the kids like, you're white, that means that you're oppressors and there's nothing you can do about that, and you're going to be that your entire life. And then it's all this, and this guy trying to going through pseudo history of Europe, and just a whole bunch of bullshit. And eventually the video ends by them walking the children into they spent a whole day on the field getting educated, and then at night they go into another field where they burn a cross to remind them that they're associated with the Ku Klux Klan. Literally. What? Yeah, real children that they did this to, right? And I want to show you a clip because, again, this stuff makes me see red. And I'm very careful about saying that. I'm saying that people's kids should be taken away because, conservatives are worried about that happening from the left. But I think this is probably a case where this kid is going to grow up fucked up if somebody doesn't take this kid away. So what I'm going to show you is a little girl who's in this video. And this is going to be her mother speaking to her. And I'm not gonna fast forward through this. I'm gonna play it. It's about 30, maybe 40 seconds long. So just bear with me. So here it is. And please let me know if you can't hear it, Tim.
And what was the first time that you realized that you were white?
And for those of you who are listening, this is her mother just asked, what was the first time you realized you were white? And this is a 5-year-old girl. And she has no fucking idea what to say because the correct answer is fuck you.
She's just sitting there. She hasn't answered. The video is still playing for those just listening and not watching. She's just sitting there, moving, looking. It doesn't seem like that tough of a question.
She has
Does it
no idea what
upset
to
you?
do. Okay, she just asked, does it upset you?
What's that noise? Is that a fire alarm?
That's music coming in. Okay, so I probably didn't preface that correctly because I don't think I got the proper reaction out of you. So the implication when she asks, what's the first time that you realized that you were white? The implication is what's the first time that you realized that you were part of the ruling class that will always be associated with oppressing black people, right? They actually consider whiteness sort of, they actually say it later in here, whiteness is a toxin, right? It's a disease. Whiteness is to be part of the system of oppression, right? And so that right there was a social justice warrior parent asking her 5-year-old little kid, what's the first time you realized you were a piece of shit? Right? And this kid's gonna grow up with that fucking shitty ass parent and gonna be fucked up for the rest of her life. She's gonna need counseling as soon as she can get out of that house. And
So,
go ahead.
so I just don't. I mean, I don't. I think you know me well enough to know that I don't agree with that approach or what they're doing, and don't really. I don't sign on to the whole, whites have to be oppressive and all of that. But I kind of want to. I kind of want to look at this from a different angle and say, like, this is part of the freedom of our country that we fight for, is the ability to raise your kids and teach them your values, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I
I'm
mean,
aware of the contradiction that I'm holding right here.
Yeah, as much as it disgusts you, it's it's not against the law. And the counterpoint though would be, how much political uproar do you think we would get if that was a mom teaching their child to be racist, right? I mean, she is teaching her to be racist against herself or against whites.
Mm-hmm.
But that isn't, what the country's sensitive to right now. It's sensitive to racism against minorities.
Right.
And so if that video was about a mother teaching their child to be racist against minorities, I think that thing would have blown up and had, billions of views.
Yeah. There's an interesting difference, and it's going to sound like I'm defending racists. I swear to God, I'm not. I promise. But there's an interesting difference there. Like psychologically, there's an issue with what they just did, which is different than what you're talking about, right? So if a parent is teaching a kid to be xenophobic or racist, that's going to that may actually never negatively impact them. Like if they never meet a black person, that's actually never going to impact them. It's horrible. It's bad, but that's not going to cause them psychological issues in the way that saying that you are this bad thing that you can't change, right? It's essentially the mechanic that Christianity has, where you have original sin, but then Christianity allows you to get out of it by saying you're saved through Christ, right? So it's like you have this original sin, and our religion doesn't have any way to get rid of it. So sorry, you're fucked. Good luck being white.
I agree with you. It's not self-deprecating. Being racist against somebody else isn't self-deprecating, but how you treat somebody else. Imagine how the slaves felt, or all the way up until the more modern era where people were still being persecuted and and things like that, where everyone was telling them that they're lesser, right? I mean, that has the same effect as if you were being like that girl's having, right? It's just
yeah, I agree.
They're equally terrible.
Strange whataboutism. Like I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah. I'm just talking it through, like, because I think some people might not realize that it's, like you're not saying one's better than the other. It's just like the mother is doing to her daughter. In this case, I believe the mother's doing to her daughter there what we're trying to fight against that happened in the past, which is what the upper class, the whites, did to blacks. Right? They made them believe that they were lesser, that they weren't deserving, and that's exactly what the mother's doing there. And at least it seems like I mean, that clip's not enough for me to fully understand that. I'm taking your word and your interpretation of it.
You remember that whiteness article that went through the New York City system, where it was like your degree of whiteness, and it was on a scale. This is like the same.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's the same kind of thing. Like she's like basically telling her kid, like, you're white, right? And then the follow-on is that you probably need to follow through on that scale, and even then, you're still going to have to be careful for the rest of your life. So,
Yeah.
kids
Yeah,
need
that's
counseling. And you know what? The fucked up thing is that, or the good thing, I guess, is that kid is probably going to need to be medicated at some point. Definitely going to need to see a psychologist, but will not end up being a social justice warrior. That kid will rebel and hopefully not do drugs. Hopefully just rebel and like become a conservative or a libertarian or something like that. But there's no way that the kid can live with that. That's just horrible.
I don't know, man. Plenty of people have unfortunately gone through persecution and things like that, and have come out on the top. At least okay. Not as good as they maybe could have, but
yeah,
yeah, that's terrible.
That's it for me.
I just wish people could just get past it all. Like, don't look at color at all. Don't look at any of that shit. Just focus on your own merits.
That's not it, man. They say that you have to be anti-racist now. You cannot just passively not see color. You have to be anti-racist.
I am anti-racist against anybody.
No, not according to their definition. Anti-racist is an active ally, somebody who actively reduces their whiteness, acknowledges their privilege, and does things to mitigate against it, like giving your shit to black people or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm being reductive because Chris isn't here, so sorry, audience.
Yeah. So I got one that's a little less serious.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry about that. I have one that's
Why
less
so
serious.
serious?
Oh my god, I saw that.
This one came out a little while back, but I just happened to see it recently. So the meme's a picture of Joe Biden giving a speech, and he's standing in the White House, and behind him are all these flags.
They gotta be the state flags, no?
There's probably, they are the state flags. There's probably 51 flags back there, including the American flag.
Yeah, estimate.
Or so, somewhere in that range, I'd estimate. And anyway, so the person that tweeted this picture says, "Look at all the flags behind him in our White House, and only one is the American flag." And you can't see the response in this particular screenshot, but all the responses were like, "Yeah, you dumbass, those are the state flags." But it just, this is why politics is so hard. People see what they want to see. They have their preconceptions. They're always looking for something to be angry about. Like, it's just human nature. Like, and ignorance wins in a lot of cases, over people.
Yeah, nobody likes talking about it because it's rude. But part of the problem is that there's a lot of dumb people. There's a saying that technically isn't true, but I like it because it kind of makes people squirm a little bit. Is that think about the average person's intelligence and then realize that half the people are stupider than that.
Yeah.
I was watching. Want to erase them.
I was watching one of your heroes today. Just a couple minutes of him, Mr. Jordan Peterson. I'm pretty sure you have like a bronze statue of him somewhere in your house. You like rub his head.
Yeah, I rub his head every time I come through the door. I make Sweetie do it too.
But anyway, so it was one of his talks where he was talking about the IQ, the minimum in the military. I'm assuming you've seen him talk about that before. So I don't remember offhand. I think it was like 86 or 85 or something. But if somebody's IQ is below whatever the number is, it's in the 80s. The military will not accept them. They can't fill a role. And so, his explanation of that point is that the military has decided that if your IQ is that level or lower, you literally can't be trained to be a positive addition to any job in the military, right? You just aren't capable of bringing anything to the table that they need. And he then goes on to make the point and say, if the military is as complex on average as the private sector, then it's not a giant leap to say that people with that level or lower are going to really struggle to find a job or something where they can be a positive impact to the private sector, to the workforce.
Yeah.
And then he goes and says the scariest part, which is 1 in 10 people have that IQ or lower. Right. So 10% of the population, based on this far extrapolation of things, really will struggle in the workforce. And his point isn't.
And they're mostly men, by the way.
Probably.
I don't have Chris to push back on that, but there's
I don't know. I know that women generally have a higher IQ.
There's debate on the distribution of IQ, right? So for those of you who think I'm a raging sexist, it's actually men and women are on average the same intelligence.
I thought women were slightly higher.
No. So
average.
what it turns out is that there's two different theories, and I do not understand how this hasn't been settled yet. But apparently, there's two different theories. There's one where they are roughly the exact same, where we have the exact same IQ distribution between men and women. And then there's the greater variability hypothesis, where men actually, there's more male geniuses, but then there's also more male knuckle draggers. So we sort of like have the both tail ends. I subscribe to that one. Couldn't tell you why. Probably because I'm a sexist, but there it is.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, now I have something I'm going to have to look into a bit.
There you go. Check it out, man. Greater male variability hypothesis.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch our podcast to get that.
I would write it down for you, but you can't read, so.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm sorry, Tim. I'm sorry. It's because you're from Ohio.
I don't read well.
Tim, tell me, if this was the 1800s, would you secede with the South? Because Ohio didn't, but I just get it's Ohio. I feel like it was a fluke that they didn't.
That's a really tough question to answer because I'm looking at it through the lens of someone that's lived in the 2000s. My values don't align with the values of what the South were fighting for or stood for at the time.
I don't think your values align with what the North stood for either.
That was going to be my next point, right? But they're closer to that because we have been progressing. So I don't think it's a fair question. I mean, I'm very centrist right now. I don't really subscribe to anything that doesn't make sense to me. I don't care which side says it, right? So at the time, I'd probably be just fucking floating in the Ohio River because I didn't know which side to go to. And just build me a houseboat, make camp in the middle or something. I'll be Sweden. I don't know.
Nice. All right. I got a meme. This one's more lighthearted, thankfully, after weeks and weeks of doom and gloom. All right. So this meme that I'm about to show you just reminds me that we're all animals, right? Fundamentally, we're a very unique animal, but at the same time, we're still animals, right? And so,
I just started singing that song about the Discovery Channel in my head.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was good stuff, man. I got that on a CD. I got that shit on a CD, a mixed CD from a friend.
I got it on 8-track.
All right, so check this out. This is people on Twitter.
Love it.
Back on Twitter. Yo, people are stupid, man.
Right? Like, who decided to open that gate for the first time?
Oh yeah, that I don't know. Well, because I've seen that variation on dogs a bunch of times. So that person might have seen that on the internet and be like, "Oh, I wonder if these two fuckers will do the same thing." Like,
yeah, nope. Whoops.
Yeah, or it was some guy who was like, "Go at it!" like have at it, boys. And then he was just disappointed. He's like, "Oh shit! Well, I'm just gonna get internet karma, I guess, by filming it." But that's so funny. But look,
dog fighting ring.
I'm wondering because we all of us mammals share circuits, right? Even back to crustaceans, we share circuits, which is Jordan Peterson. But we all kind of share certain circuits, and I'm wondering, I'm looking at this, and it's like that's probably not a coincidence. I see the exact same thing with people on social media. As soon as there's something between you and that person where they can't ever get to you or basically even know who you are, because even if you have your name and face, it's an abstraction, right? You're not there. You just let loose in a way that you would never do in front of a person, right? Just think about anything AOC tweets at people, right? Or Cardi B or Candace Owens or whoever's flaming back and forth. People just aren't that rude in person for a reason. Because if you say half that shit to somebody, you're gonna get smacked, and for good reason. It's just shit's rude, man.
Yeah, that's there's some truth there. I don't know. We'll have to get Jordan Peterson to tell us if there's some.
Well, the circuits are sometimes. Oh man, I miss that guy.
Um,
That guy's Jesus, man. Jesus, I miss him.
I'd like to see some data behind his, he's always like, no, the data's clear on this. Well, tell me where I want to go look at it real quick. I trust you a little bit, like halfway. I'd
Right,
still like
right.
to, and maybe if I verified one or two of the data things that he says are very clear. Sometimes I struggle to trust somebody all the time.
Yeah, fair enough.
I
Fair
want to
enough.
double check it.
I trust. You
Occasionally.
know why I trust him? I was thinking about that. We can talk about this maybe for a couple minutes here. Everybody trusts somebody, right? We all trust somebody, right? For the most part, people just do not have time to be skeptical. So there is something that you trust, right? Whether it's as abstract as like you trust Fox News or you trust CNN or you trust a politician that you like or like there's people in your life that you trust. You trust this guru to get you the right answers on this thing, whatever it is. There are people that you trust and you don't pick apart, and it's necessary, right? It is.
Yeah, I agree. I just have never gotten to the point with him yet. I've never looked up something,
Right.
So I was that way with Shapiro until I started looking stuff up, and I was like, okay, he's twisting shit around pretty seriously.
Right. There you go. Great.
You know?
That's good stuff. And I'll agree with you. He's absolutely. I've caught him myself just passively when I listened to him in the car on the way home from work when I used to drive. I'd listen to him and I'd be like, nah, that's bullshit. Like, that's bullshit. So like, Shapiro's great, but like with Jordan Peterson, let me just explain something. So in the context of what I just said, like you need people to trust. I am always worried that I'm trusting the wrong people constantly. I'm just like, I have in the past trusted the wrong people. So I'm very, very conscious of this thing. And I was thinking about it. It's like, why am I so comfortable trusting Jordan Peterson? And it's character. It comes down to his character. It's the way that the man conducts himself, right? Ben Shapiro, he's great. He's an informationaholic. I think he's 90% correct on a lot of stuff, maybe 85%, which is really good compared to a lot of people. But he's still
Not compared
a
to me.
conservative shill, right? Jordan Peterson, I just get a feeling from the man. He conducts himself as ethics and morals, and I trust him. I don't know.
I haven't gone and looked up his statistics yet, partly because I find him to be trustworthy. But that's the thing is, trustworthy people don't always come across that way, and untrustworthy people don't always come across that way. Like it's not.
Yeah, I would argue you can kind of.
There are con men are successful because they can make you trust them even though they're not trustworthy.
Yeah, but even then, con men, you're like,
and if you look at Jordan Peterson's hairstyle,
good to be true. The whole time you're like, I want to believe what you're saying, and you might end up believing what they're saying, but the whole time you're like, yeah, but is that really true?
No, I think that's just in TV shows, man.
What's that?
It's just in TV shows. Like in TV shows, they're acting for you to feel that way as a viewer. Like I've not personally met that I'm aware of a con man.
I have,
but I imagine for them to be successful, they have to be really good at what they're doing. And I think if you base your opinion on hairstyles, Jordan Peterson could surely be a con man. Like no joke.
Back when he had that
100%
goatee, man,
could be.
I swear to God.
Yeah, he's got the look. Well, I had another meme. It's a very positive, longer conversation, so I want to jump into it real quick. Sure. I saw this as I was scrolling through my favorite Reddit. Well, just Reddit is my favorite, not any particular subreddit. Anyway, so it's a picture of an old white guy. He's got a younger black guy in his arm in the picture. For those just listening, and it says, "Self-made millionaire Harris Rosen adopted a Florida neighborhood called Tangelo Park. I'm not sure how you say it. Cut the crime rate in half, increased the high school graduation rate from 25 to 100% by giving everyone free daycare and all high school graduates scholarships." So my first step was, let's look this up, right?
Please tell me it's real, please.
It is. It's true.
Oh, thank God.
It's all true. So TLDR, it's true. So I looked it up. I looked it up on their website, the Tangelo Park program, several, news articles about it. Oh, that's for something else. I didn't actually put them all in here. I had like 5 pull up at one point. And, I was trying to verify the information and learn a little bit more about what he did. And so the crux of what he did though are these 3 things. So it's free preschool or daycare is what they said in the other thing, for every 2, 3, and 4-year-old. And then after that, at 5 years old, you're in kindergarten or whatever, so it's part of the school program. He offered classes for the parents to go to vocational or technical school if they had children in school. And he also offered to pay full tuition, room, board, living expenses, everything for any high school graduate from that high school, as long as they went to school in state. And yeah, and so over like quickly, it did everything that was listed in that meme, which was dropped crime rates, increased high school graduation rates from 25% to I've seen 99 and 100%. So they might have come from different years. And then the success rate for the students that graduated high school that went into college is much higher than what is around the country from those neighborhoods that equal socioeconomic neighborhoods.
Dude, that's amazing.
And so, I think we've talked a lot about, can an influx of money, change a community? Is that enough? Or is it, some people believe, and I don't think anyone on this podcast does, but I know that, I know people in my life that believe that it's more of a social and a personality. What opportunities they had, they choose not to take them, and this is the life they choose to live or something, right? I don't believe that, but I've heard that argument. I think, this is such a smack in the face to that belief. It's like, look, this guy came in, he put the opportunities there. He said, look, do well, I'm going to pay for your school. Parents the opportunity to go and get some education and get a better job, and give them an opportunity to have their children that are younger in daycare so they can go to work and so they can help you in school, right? Free up their time a little bit.
Yeah.
And it had a massive impact in this community. And so, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, I forget which article it's in. I thought it was this one. But there's a study, every dollar that he put into this community, it was worth $7 to the economy.
Yep. So let me provide the counter case a little bit. So I'm blown away by this. Like, I mean, that is so incredibly amazing. That is exactly what conservatives want to see, right? This somebody who made it, turning around and investing in a community. That's 100% what we stand for, right? The difference, I think, and you're probably not going to believe this, and I'm not going to convince you tonight if you're not convinced by this. The difference between what this is and what liberals are advocating for is there is a psychological difference between receiving aid from a government and then receiving something to which you can be grateful for, right? So something that was not owed to you, but given to you out of the goodness of someone else's heart. And that, I think, inculcates, as in this case, I think in everybody who receives that, the kids, the parents, the community, it inculcates a sense of gratitude, which is far better than a sense of this was given to me, right? It's a different thing. The sense of gratitude makes you feel responsible, right? Responsible to the person who gave you the money. It's like, well, on him, right? And there's a difference between that and just pumping money into a system. It's owed to you like nothing. It's just the same thing that's been going on for 100,000 years, like 100 years. I think there's a difference. Do you think so? Or do you think I'm full of wind here?
Well, before I answer, I want to say I apologize to anyone watching. The stream's been lagging for a while, and
Has it? Sorry, everybody.
Yeah. And it might be on my side. I asked in stream, but no one responded. And you're coming through extremely fuzzy to me too. So it might be your guys' internet.
You're actually really clear to me.
Yeah. So it might be your guys' upload right now. Yeah, and so
sorry,
anyway, sorry to everyone. Hopefully it gets fixed soon. So all right. So to kind of get on topic of that, I don't fully agree. I think there could be some of that. Human nature and psychology is difficult to fully understand and predict.
And I'm not a psychologist. We are bullshitters on the internet.
Yeah, we are internet shitters. I was going to say, but that's definitely not. Definitely not what I wanted to go with. Hey, we're
Again.
back, I think. So sorry about that. We're having some technical difficulties on the producer side, but we got him to stop all his downloads, and hopefully that'll fix it. I don't actually think that's what it was. But I don't think that's what it really was, but we'll see. Never know. So we don't know exactly what's come through and what hasn't. So hopefully you didn't miss too much. But we're about to jump into the Derek Chauvin trial.
What do you mean?
This is
We solved everything in that.
Yeah,
last
we solved everything. Yeah, for sure. So if you missed it, sorry, but problems are solved. So
yeah, see you later, sucker. We're going to Mars.
So the trial. This is something that you really wanted to talk about. And I know that the trial's coming up, and there, in my opinion, there's not a ton of new information, but there's some stuff that could kind of get rehashed, and I think it'd be interesting to talk about the different charges and what he could, be found guilty of, and what would make sense or not, and that kind of stuff. So
yeah. So let's get into that. I have the charges pulled up. I don't know if you do. But okay. So just a little bit of context. So number one, Chris was supposed to be here tonight. He does have some pretty important other stuff he's attending to. So please excuse him. So tonight, I kind of wanted to get into it a little bit with Chris, so that we could go back and forth and kind of show you what the left and right are, how we view this. So you're mostly gonna get the right and Tim. So basically the facts, and then how the right sees it, and then Chris isn't here. So I could probably do maybe a decent bit describing his side of the fence, but
I don't think we need to. Let's just talk. I don't think it's a great idea to try and put words in his mouth. Let's say that. I don't know.
No, not his mouth, the left's mouth. But sure.
They don't like words in their mouth.
It's just like devil's advocate, because they are all devils. All right, so the charges against Derek Chauvin, right? So
he looks evil in that picture.
Oh, stop
does he not look evil in that? This isn't about.
He looks like he means business, right?
No, he looks evil. Like he looks like he's possessed or something.
I think you're just projecting, right? I don't think it's.
I'm not evil.
No, exactly. It's not projecting. It's I don't know what it is. I would. No,
I mean, I don't necessarily think he is. I just that particular picture. I've seen it before.
He's a cop, man. I know you had a run-in with cops. So I think you just have PTSD.
Maybe, yeah, could be. They all look the same.
For the stream, no. We'll go into that. Okay, so let's see. He's got a couple charges on here. Okay, so rewind. So I want to talk about the trial, because it's starting, right? So we're doing. I think it's March 13th. We're about to begin. 23rd. Sorry, we're about to begin the trial. And I thought it was important to talk about it, talk about what he's charged with, how the right and left are looking at it, and then kind of what the expected fallout from the trial is going to be, what this means for politics going forward, race relations, all that kind of stuff. And again, I'm kind of sad Chris isn't here, because it's a pretty heavy topic, again. So again, we're just shitters on the internet, so if you get offended, fuck yourself. Okay, so second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter, right? And so there's a little bit of talking about it down here. You want me to read these, generally?
What? Read what?
So second-degree murder, what is second-degree unintentional murder?
Oh, no, well, I mean, I think definitely for the audience, I looked it up, because it is a state thing, if you didn't know.
Yes, it's definitely different by state.
So some states, for second-degree murder, you have to prove intent. And in other states, you do not. And so in Minnesota, they have apparently two types of second-degree murder. One requires intent, the other does not. But there are some specifics that you have to meet for the one that doesn't. So,
right.
Go ahead.
You want me to go for it?
Let me see if I have it handy. I think I had it pulled up at one point. Yeah. Okay. So second degree murder in Minnesota may or may not require intent. These are the ways to commit second degree murder in Minnesota: killing someone with intent but without planning the murder. Right. So first degree generally, I guess, requires planning. Although there is some ways you can get first degree murder, I think, in Minnesota without planning. The next is killing someone unintentionally while committing or trying to commit a drive-by shooting, which is crazy that is a specific thing that is
Yeah.
in there, but it is. Killing someone unintentionally while using violence or force to commit a felony other than first or second degree criminal sexual conduct. And then killing someone unintentionally while trying to injure that person if there is an order for protection for that person and against the perpetrator. So in this case, the only one that to me could seem to apply to this case would be the one where you kill them unintentionally while using violence or force, committing a felony. So at that point, they would have to prove that a felony was being committed separate from the murder, right? In my opinion,
you can't just say that the felony is the murder, right? So you can't like double book them that way.
No, I would imagine not. No,
right. I don't think. Hey, not lawyers, by the way. Neither of us lawyers. We're just doing our best out here. I don't see that applying. I know we shouldn't nitpick all of these, but like for that, I don't see it. I don't know what their argument is going to be for what felony.
That's the only one of these in the list, and this is
Right.
from a lawyer's webpage. It does not mean it's all inclusive, but of that list, that's the only one that could apply, in my opinion. And I don't know that it could, but it maybe could, right? So, but third degree murder does not require intent.
Right.
So third degree murder, I think, could very much be on the books, and it is on this particular lawyer's webpage. It says classic examples of this level of murder are driving a vehicle or firing a gun into a group of people, which I don't think, it's not this, but this one could apply, which is this murder charge can also result when a person is killed through any dangerous act showing indifference to the sanctity of human life. So if people feel like he just didn't care about his life,
that's what they'll argue. That's what they'll argue that very strongly.
Then that one, really could. So it's called the depraved mind piece of this language, meaning like you don't have to have intent, you just have to basically have not given a shit.
Right.
And so that one, so I think third degree murder could definitely be on the table, depending on how the jury sees things and goes with it.
Right. I would say more on the table than second degree for sure.
Second degree, I would be interested to find out what felony, because I don't know that there's another. Is there another charge? Is he getting charged with another felony right now?
He's getting charged with second degree, third degree, and second degree.
And manslaughter, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't see, if they didn't charge him with another felony, then it's going to be hard to prove he was committing one. So I'm curious to see how they go at that second degree charge.
Would that be a weird thing? Again, not lawyers here, but would that be a weird thing where if he gets, first of all, I don't even know if those murders are felonies, right? So if he gets convicted of one of the other ones, then by default, that one becomes true because one of the other one's a felony.
One of what other murders?
While he's committing that other felony. I don't know. That sounds like some really legalistic. You know what I'm saying? So he's accused of three things, and I don't know if any of those counts as a felony. So let's say this is the second degree, which requires him to have another felony that he's conducting while he's killing someone. What if this right here is
I see what you're saying.
Right,
yeah.
And this turns out to be a felony, so now this one is true because this was a felony and he was carrying that out? That seems like some bullshit to me. I don't.
In my experience, the law generally does follow common sense. Not always, but generally. Right. And
I don't think that's
so. My common sense feeling is that all of those charges are based on one act, and I would imagine that the particular crime while committing a felony, to me, that's like if you're robbing a store and kill somebody, right? Or like. The killing of somebody was a result of some other action. So in this case, the action could be, if an officer using excessive force is a felony, right? I don't know if it is, or I don't know, but maybe, right? Excessive force being a felony could then open the door for this charge, if that's the case, as an example, because he was killed by him using excessive force, but the excessive force in itself was also a separate felony than the killing. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's I don't know that I haven't seen a charge for that. I haven't. So
We'll see. No,
you know,
well, I haven't either. I'm in this article I have pulled up. Basically, says all of them. It's not like, hey, this is just the ones that this is where it's killing him. This is he's charged with 3 things. So, as far as I
Yeah.
understand, that's it. At least for this trial. I don't know if there'd be a separate trial. I don't know. Too many what ifs. But so, what about second degree manslaughter? Do you have that one pulled up?
I didn't read through the manslaughters, but I can. So yeah, I have it right here. So manslaughter in the second degree can occur in several different ways. Killing someone in an act while knowingly taking the chance of causing someone's death or serious injury. I could see that. Killing a child through neglect, I would say no. Allowing a dangerous animal free reign, I would say no. That results in someone's death. Killing someone by setting up a trap or snare. Oh man, I'm gonna have to take down all my traps. I'm gonna say that one also no. And then shooting and killing someone that you negligently think is an animal. I'm gonna go ahead and say no on that one too. So
No.
the only one in here.
This one has the degree to which may be appropriate to charge him with, but none of those apply really. Right?
I think the top one does. Killing someone in an act while knowingly taking the chance of causing someone's death or serious injury. Right. So I would say that, kneeling on somebody's neck would knowingly be a possibility of causing serious injury or death. Right.
Yeah.
Not that was the goal or the expected outcome, but that's a risk.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So then for those who don't know, what a lot of it's going to come down to with that charge is a difficult thing. And I'm not just saying this because I'm like a conservative and I'm on his side or something like that. It's actually very difficult to establish intent. So what they're going to need to do there is establish that he knew that what he was doing could cause harm, right? And it sounds easy to do. It's like, well, that's so obvious. Well, you can say that's obvious, but it's going to be it's still going to be legally difficult to establish that. So that's probably where that one's going to come down to.
So one of the things we didn't talk about, which might be interesting. So for second degree murder, it can result in a 40-year prison sentence. Third degree murder is of up to 25 years. And if it was related to drugs, there's some other things on there. And then second degree manslaughter is up to 10 years and up to $20,000 in fines or both. And it says culpable negligence is the most common mens rea standard applied to second degree manslaughter. So mens rea just means state of mind, I believe.
Yeah, it looks like he also gets additional protections for being a police officer. So let me read this to you. Yeah, well, no, I mean it actually says it right here in the article. So I'll just read this paragraph here. It's interesting. So jurors, God, it's highlighting the whole thing for some reason. Jurors have to determine whether Chauvin is guilty or not guilty on the 2 charges filed against him. But during the trial, jurors will hear about special protections state law gives to police officers, allowing them to use force that a, quote, reasonable police officer in the same situation would believe to be necessary, unquote. The state will have to prove that the force Chauvin used was unreasonable under the circumstances. So, that doesn't actually change it too much, honestly.
No, I don't think so. No, I agree. I don't think it does.
It's the mandate, like, yes, he's allowed to be in that situation doing that, right? Because Tim, if you were found kneeling on someone's neck and they died, like, you would just immediately, like, yes, he murdered him, right? But that's basically just saying he's a police officer. It's his job to be restraining people. Now you have to decide whether that was excessive force or manslaughter or murder, like whatever it is,
Yeah, I agree. I think it provides a little bit of protection, but
a little. Like, a very reasonable amount of protection.
Yeah.
You need a that's essentially a mandate from the state saying that's sort of the legal side of the mandate. Like, yes, you're allowed to be arrested, cuffing them, hitting them with a baton if you need to, like whatever it is, if it's reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, after reading through this, are they charging him with first degree manslaughter also?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, in my mind, I think, second degree manslaughter could very well apply. And I think to a lesser degree, third-degree murder could apply. I don't see how second-degree murder can apply right now.
Yeah.
There's likely something I'm missing. I don't think they're just gonna be like, "Hey, let's charge him with this stuff too." So they might have. I don't know. Why not just go to first degree and first degree manslaughter then too, right? Just throw everything out there, see what sticks, right? But
Yep.
I don't know about second degree, but I think there's a chance of third degree and definitely a chance of second degree manslaughter. And there's definitely a chance of nothing, of him being acquitted. And let's segue into what's going to happen either way, right? If he is found guilty, what's the repercussions in a good and bad way? And repercussions actually makes it sound bad, but what's the results in a political way? And also if he's innocent.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I actually want to go through some of the items that are going to get brought up in the trial. We can just go through this really quickly.
Okay.
Part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this tonight was because I honestly think he's going to. So I'm almost certain he's going to get acquitted of both of the murders, and then I think he's also going to get off of the third degree, because there's a whole bunch of factors that, and this is why I want to bring it up. There's a whole bunch of factors that a lot of people don't know about, because unless you watch Fox News or if you're into conservative talk show hosts, you just haven't heard about this because it's sort of counter narrative, or like nobody cares enough to report it. It's like a selection bias. It's not that they wouldn't report it, it's that they don't care enough to report it. And some of these Chris would push back on. So I just want to, put that out there, everybody. Chris, in spirit, he's here watching us, but he might push back on some of this. But from what the right sees, I'll go through these fairly quickly. So there's a contention that kneeling on the neck is not part of police procedure. That was in the immediate days after the crime and the subsequent months. That was championed all over the place. However, it turns out, or it appears to turn out, that the Minneapolis Police Department trained its officers to use the neck restraint that led to George Floyd's killing, according to court documents. Right. So his defense is going to contend that he was trained to do exactly that, right? And then maybe to Chris's point, he probably did it too long or too callously, like he stopped responding, but he kept doing it, right? I'm sure they'll get into that. Also, there was another thing too. It's just like the slogan that came out of it was just the, like, I can't breathe, right? And the important thing to know about that is that, again, when the additional body cam footage got leaked later, the transcript will show you that he said, I can't breathe, several times before he was put on the ground, right? So he was sitting in the back of the car saying, I can't breathe. And then the officer says, I'm going to roll down the windows for you. I'm going to roll down the windows. And he's like, I can't breathe. Man, just put me on the ground. And then he ended up kicking his way out of the car, and then they ended up restraining him after that. So the defense is going to point to this to say, he was already claiming to be suffocating before while he was in the upright position. And that's going to speak to Derek Chauvin's mind, like just kind of disregarding this fentanyl-addled person who keeps repeating over and over and over again, I can't breathe.
He didn't know that he had fentanyl in his system at the time. It's not that's not fair to say he disregarding a fentanyl-addled person.
Absolutely is fair. That dude was cracked out of his mind. Did you see the footage?
I disagree. Yeah, I did, and I disagree to say that it's fair. You can't just assume that somebody's got something in their system.
Huh?
You can't. He could have been high on weed. Like, you can't just assume that that somebody's high on something, or specifically high on something that's going to, cause them to act in a specific way like that. Now, post all of this, we know he had fentanyl in his system, but it
doesn't really matter what he had in his system. Chauvin and everybody at the scene, including the friends that were interviewed on the spot, knew that he was high on some shit. Everybody knew that. We don't know what it is, but you knew that he was high.
And that matters why.
It wasn't weed.
And that matters why. Like, you don't treat him with the same level of respect, or like, I'm not sure what the point is there.
I'm not sure either, actually. Well, kind of the point is that he likely, let's see. This is also going to get brought up. New court documents say that George Floyd had fatal level of fentanyl in his system. So, and that the relevant quote here is that if we were found dead at home with no other apparent causes, this would be acceptable to call an OD. Deaths have been certified with levels 3 or lower, and he was found with 9 in his system. 9, it was like milligrams per nanometer, whatever, nanometers per milligram.
An article I read on this in the past, and this hasn't been very recent, is back when all of this was big in the news some months ago, was that isn't necessarily a fatal level. And everybody's different, right? Like some people can have higher alcohol content, and so and then the other thing was like specific to that comment that I was thinking was, if I was in a car accident and had, even if my blood alcohol content level was just below or just above legal level, they would say, oh, it was drunk driving, even though alcohol may or may not have been a cause of the accident. It's because, looking back, you're like, well, here's something that is likely or possibly a cause, so we're going to go with it. I don't that quote doesn't mean a lot to me, I guess, is what I'm saying. It's specifically with him saying, like, if there was no other apparent cause, then we would say, okay, this must have been it. Not, hey, it doesn't matter if it looked like something else could have been it. This is enough that it would have been like, yeah, fentanyl.
Right. Well, okay. So, all right. So part of the problem is that the autopsies are fairly inconclusive. You have people saying both ways. One person, I think there was like one person said OD, then switched it to murder when they saw the tape. When the Air Force medical personnel reviewed it, they said that it was cardiovascular arrest in conjunction with the restraint. So it's kind of unclear. It looks maybe like a mishmash of both. But this kind of gets to the last point that I'm going to bring up, and then we can go into the ramifications, or you can push back on anything that I've said so far, I guess. There is something called excited delirium, and this is not the only case in which this probably applies. There was another man in, I think it was Rochester, New York, who was he was high. I don't know if it was fentanyl or PCP with that guy, but he was also high, and he tore off all his clothes, and he was running around while it was snowing, and the cops came. They restrained him on the pavement, and he died very quickly. And it could be because of something called excited delirium. And what I have pulled up right here is a journal article on what excited delirium is. I'm just going to read this real quick so that you're aware of this. Again, I'm just trying to provide the context of what the defense is going to bring. I wish Chris was here so that he could kind of counterpunch some of these and provide his own evidence, but you just have me today. So excited delirium is something that generally describes the state at which a person who is very, very high on drugs can get excited, they can get overheated, they can start hyperventilating, and then ultimately they go into cardiovascular arrest, and they stop breathing. And the contention from the defense is likely going to be that excited delirium is what resulted in George Floyd's death, not just the knee or not the knee on the neck. That would be all with the increased stress of getting arrested, right? So you're already high as shit, your blood's pumping, you're near fatal doses or levels of fentanyl in your system, and then the stress of having a gun pointed at you, getting put in a cop car and getting put on the pavement, that finally results in you having a heart attack. Okay, so let me just read this real quick. So it's a little wordy because it's medical, but excited or agitated delirium is characterized by agitation, aggression, acute distress, and sudden death, right? And all of those things were present in George Floyd if you watch the footage. Often in the pre-hospital care setting. It is typically associated with the use of drugs that alter dopamine processing, hypothermia, hyperthermia, which is getting hot, and most notably sometimes with death of the affected person in custody of law enforcement. Subjects typically die from cardiopulmonary arrest, although the cause is debated, right? And then it goes on to talk about it, and this is a whole abstract article about it. So that's a thing. That's something the defense is going to bring up. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. That description, you can just take that and map that right onto what I saw in all of the body cam footage.
Yeah, I think, based on the description, it's something that could have been in play. And, as a juror, you're going to have to pay attention to that and try and draw that line. I think in this particular case, the difficult side for Derek Chauvin is that it's it seems like when you're watching the video, and I say seems like because I don't want to say that it is that way for him, but I feel like it was this way, that he just was not doing his job as he should have been doing as a police officer, right? Like I've seen all the videos. I saw George Floyd saying I can't breathe, much earlier. And so I understand where he, wasn't reacting specifically to that. But at the same time, you had
a lot of talking for someone who can't breathe.
Yeah, right. Like, but at the same time, like, there's so much that happened after just that. And so he stops becoming responsive. He stops talking. You have the crowd saying, "Hey, he's not moving. His eyes are closed. He's dead." Whatever, all these things. And rather than like even looking down or checking on him, or like he just fucking ignores it. He just doesn't.
Yeah.
And like if with George Floyd dying, like how do you not feel relaxation in muscles or like the loss of resistance of him trying to get up sometimes, or like how do you not notice these things changing as he's passing out and or dying, right? I think you would have to if you were paying any attention or gave any care to what you were doing. And then on top of that, in my opinion, with having 4 officers there, kneeling on the neck at that point wasn't required, right? And
no, I don't.
This again, that's my opinion. We've talked about this, so go and watch the other whatever link up there.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's my opinion. I feel like you could have just put pressure on the shoulder, on the chest, and if he started to get up, you jump. I mean, there's 4 of you, and getting up off the ground is not an easy thing to do, especially when you're cuffed like this. So, but
let me just say,
imagine. So just like imagine the world where he stopped kneeling on his neck, and he was just sitting there with pressure on the shoulder, and George Floyd still died. Imagine how different a narrative it is, right?
Yeah.
And so kneeling on his neck being the cause of his death or not, it is now at least a giant part of the cause of the uproar. And it's because when you watch that video, truthfully or not, it looks like he just doesn't give a shit.
Yep. And he probably exudes that on purpose, right? Because he's an inner city cop in Minneapolis, right? So let me just comment real quick. And there's a whole bunch of people, even people in the military who got the same training that I did, who would push back on this. But it is the case that it is very easy for all of us, including myself, right? Because I've never been in an actual confrontation. I've done a whole bunch of training. When I was in the military, I was trained as a security reaction force, right? And I'm a small guy, so it's kind of funny, like thinking about. I remember there was an instructor for my security reaction force class, and it was my job to take him down. It was part of the final course. And I'm just like this tiny 135, 5'10" guy, and I just like he's like a hulking 6'1", like 250 guy, and I have to like
so
throw
he's
my
small.
up
He's a tiny dude.
To like get my arm all over him and like wrestle him to the ground, and he's just like standing there as I'm like tweaking his shoulder, like, "Come on, man, get on the ground, you motherfucker." Anyways, so look, so my point is that and this is what we do too, right? We sit in our armchairs and we snipe at people, in real life doing real things. And it's easy for us to say, and it's easy for the civilians to say, "Oh, he should have done this. He should have done this. He should have known this." It's so obvious, right? And until you are there on the street, kneeling on that man's neck to restrain him, to keep him from moving, and you have a hostile crowd on the sidewalk filming you, and you've been doing this for 20 years. You've been shot at. All your, you have friends that die. Like whatever. It's very hard to know what you would have done in that situation. It's very hard.
Oh, 100% agree. We've talked about this before. I do not envy police at all, especially in today's world. Right. I've said multiple times where I watch a video and the police officer is showing a level of restraint that I would have exploded and beat the shit out of that person at that point, right? Like,
like videos of policemen like waiting until way after they have justification to shoot somebody to then shoot somebody, or to not shoot them at all. Like they had justification and they didn't shoot them and they talked them down. Or what you don't see a lot is that they waited, tried to de-escalate the situation, and then they died for it or they got shot for it, right?
Denny sent me.
It's very hard. It's a life or death, right? You don't know. Like just think about like in Derek Chauvin's position. This guy is very, very clearly agitated. He's in like a near hallucinogenic state with how disoriented he is and how much struggling he's doing, right? So, I got to imagine, and this is just putting stuff in his head and then I'm done, but like I got to imagine he was relieved when George Floyd relaxed. He was probably like, "Oh, finally, he stopped fighting." Right? That's probably what he thought. Right? And it
maybe.
Probably wasn't,
but
good.
I mean,
it's dying. Like that's not even on the table. Like, shut up.
No. So I'm gonna go out and say I really don't think it has to do with race, regardless of if he was, how shitty of a job he was doing as a police officer. In my opinion, I don't think he was acting differently. Like he wasn't like, well, he's black, so if he dies, I don't care. I don't think that played right. I don't think it had anything to do with that, but that doesn't mean that his actions didn't, play a role. And I'm not arguing for a conviction either, so don't take it that way, right? Like I wish I was on the jury. I think I would have been such a good juror being able to try and
asking questions all the time.
Hey, Judge, excuse me. Excuse me. Can I ask this? I have a question. So can we?
you're like put your little reading glasses on. You're like, I brought a list actually.
I need the answer of, but I think I could do a good job of being impartial, and just focusing on this is what the law says, this is what happened clearly, or in like right. and being fair to both. I mean, I'm appalled that he died. I wish it didn't happen. I wish things could happen differently. Watching that video, it really appears like Derek Chauvin didn't give a shit. But is that the case, right? Like, I would like to hear his testimony. I would like to hear more about this stuff before, knowing for sure. One of the things that I was going to say is, Denny, who's a repeat viewer of ours, he sent us a video, or sent me a video of a police shooting, and I believe it was in Tennessee. But this goes to the point you were making, which is in this particular video, the officer is pulling over I think it's a Camaro. It's a black sports car. The owner of which has like 6 warrants or something out for his arrest, including drug charges and things. And so he pulls over the Camaro, and a woman gets out. And the person he's looking for is a male. And so a woman gets out, and I think she starts yelling like, "I'm not him," or something like that. And so the officer gets out and goes up to her and says, "I still have to look in the car to make sure he's not in there," and other things. And the body cam footage cuts in and out. It's not like a full live thing of the video I watched. So at some point, the officer is inspecting this woman's purse. I'm not sure why.
Right. It cut to it, right? You didn't quite see. Yeah.
So I don't know, like if he just said, "Hey, do you mind if I look in there?" And she's like, "Fine here," or if he even has or if he had a right to because of who owned the. I don't know how that all works. In my opinion, he shouldn't have been looking at her purse. Like when he pulls the car over and realizes it's not the right person, like to me, at that point, there's nothing to say, "Oh, I have reasonable suspicion to start going through their things." But I'm not a cop. I don't know the law that well. So anyway, he is looking through the bag. And she's not fighting for it back. It seems like she's, doesn't want him looking through it, but at the same time, kind of handed it to him. It seems like, so as he's going through it, he's finding drugs and things. And so he goes to handcuff her. And as he's going through the bag, take a step back, he's being extremely calm and polite. She's like, "Hey, can I get my lighter out of the car? She want to smoke a cigarette. Hey, can I call my mom?" And he's like, "Yeah, go ahead." He's letting her, like, he's being really, really, polite and in my opinion, more accepting of things than you see a lot of times in these videos. And when he goes to handcuff her, when he goes to handcuff her, Denny just wrote in chat, he said he thinks that he must have asked her, and it says this, and so I think she accidentally pulled out a pipe or something. Maybe that's what it was. Anyway, he goes to handcuff her and she freaks out. She jumps back in the car and he's like trying to pull her out. He pulls out his taser. He's like hitting her with the taser and it ain't doing shit. She's just like sucking it up. She's just like going, but she's like moving and doing her shit anyway. Where you see some people, they just turn into a blob on the ground, well, not a blob, a stiff blob. She was just like, whatevs, So then he's like taking the tip of it and hitting her with it, like jamming it on her. Cause I think the tip's also a taser, like the normal kind of, that you would carry.
Be grounded? I wonder if you're sitting in the car and you're not grounded.
I don't know. Maybe. So, because she was sitting in the seat. And anyway, so she leans over, grabs a gun out of the passenger seat. And so you hear the officer yell, put down the gun. And she pulls it out and starts shooting at him and shot her window out and hit him. And he, at the time, pulled his gun out and fired back. And she ended up dying from the altercation. But, I guess the point I'm trying to make is if you're too accepting and nice and whatever, you can also get yourself into bad situations as a cop, right?
Yep.
I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it either way, right? Like I wish that stuff just didn't happen. But the one thing I think of a lot is, I understand the cop is putting himself at risk and is dealing with this all the time, but I think it's hard. But you still have to remember as a cop that like most people are just decent people, not maybe all the people you deal with, or I definitely think cops get jaded from the ones I know over time from just dealing with the assholes every day. But
it's easy for us to sit here and say that.
Oh, I'm being idyllic. That's what I'm saying. I'm even saying that, right? Like,
yeah.
I just anyway.
Yeah, we'll see. So let's talk the fallout real quick, and then we can switch to the next topic. I guess we can go a little bit over tonight because we started a little bit late, but So let's talk about the fallout. So I mean, it's pretty obvious for anybody who's paying attention. The courthouse is all boarded up. That was actually going to be my background tonight, but I actually couldn't find a picture. But the courthouse is like all sorts of boarded up and barricaded, and there's actually a new autonomous zone. There's like a Derek or a George Floyd autonomous zone in Minneapolis. I think we're going to see a repeat of last year.
I think it'll be worse
I think
it'll be worse if he's acquitted. Because I mean, like I said, honestly, when you watch that video, and most people, so let's take a step back. Most people don't know as much as we do. We're probably in the top 1%, and we don't know shit.
Right? Yeah.
So, you look at what most people know. Most people saw the video. That's it.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
And when you watch that video, you're like, yeah, the fucker's guilty. Right? Like it's like, it's clear. It's on video right here. You see him do it. Like he's guilty.
Yeah, you heard a lot of that in the jury selection, right? It's like, so you said, you marked down on the survey that you saw the video and you formed an opinion. It's like, yeah, well, he killed him. Oh, damn it. All right, you're out.
Yeah, exactly. And so, what's going to happen when all these people that it's like obvious, right? It's he fucking killed him. That's what they think. And now he goes free. Their first thought is, doesn't matter what a cop does. Doesn't matter. It's on video. Yeah. It's right here. I saw it. Everyone saw it. It's crystal clear what happened. This is bullshit. Cops are protected. We got to break it. And it's going to flip. It is going to flip. If he is not charged with something, it's going to go ape shit.
Any responsible news organization does what we just did, or what we would have had if we had Chris on here. Like, people need to understand that it is not as black and white as that video makes it seem. And I'll say all day long. I don't think
it's a good idea to use the terms black and white. You should probably use.
Timothy, it's very appropriate. Okay. Look, my point is that there's a whole bunch of people. Again, it's our silos, right? Like if MSNBC was just an actual, honest to God news station and not just a leftist, wing of the Democratic Party, like just show this stuff. Even if you're making fun of it the whole time, let people know that there's an argument against this. Like, because we are going to get so much cultural whiplash if he gets off. It's just people don't even know. Yeah, exactly. Like you said, we know way more than most people, and people just aren't going to understand it when he gets off. They're not even going to read the Wikipedia article. They're just going to go riot.
And that's what's going to happen. I mean, I've heard you said it now. Denny's saying it in chat. I've heard other people say it's going to be a repeat. It's not going to be a repeat. It's gonna make what happened before, look like the Boy Scouts. In my opinion, I think it's gonna go crazy. It's not gonna be peaceful protests anymore, right? Like as unpeaceful as they would end up occasionally previously. I think like the intent is gonna stop being peaceful, right? I think I honestly feel like this is gonna be a tipping point for that movement of you know
You think
getting,
if
yeah.
all of those pessimistic people are right about the coming civil war, this could be the spark? I'm not one of them,
I don't know about a civil war from it.
but
I
mean,
don't know. I don't think so. But I think it's gonna be a nationwide problem in every populated area, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and if he's found guilty, so let's talk about the repercussion from that. If he's found guilty, I think
Depends on
generally that's
found guilty of, because it's a little different, right? If it's
Yeah.
the man one, cops everywhere across the country are gonna moan and groan about it. They'll say it's injustice probably. But if it's the second degree murder,
a lot of cops I know. Well, I don't know a lot of cops. The few that I do know, and I talked about this with, they all actually were on board and said that he was in the wrong. Yeah.
That's interesting. I'd be curious. I'm sure that's not typical. Maybe
I don't know, but the ones I know, the two or
like
three,
the more stuff that came out, right? The autopsy came out later. The dude was high as shit. The other footage came out. Like all of this stuff that I talked about was sort of like the weeks and months after the incident. So
I know all that's a factor, but to me and to them and what we were talking about, it boils down to how he acted and what his actions were. And they watched the video, saw his actions, regardless of if the guy was high, had a fucking heart attack or not. Like that changes on if he's responsible for the murder or not, for the charges. But it doesn't change the fact that they felt like he was out of line by far, like completely out of line, right? So regardless if the guy had a heart attack from that or not, or why he died, they still are like, yeah, the way he acted, what he did, like how long he was on his neck, all those things. He's like, that was complete bullshit, that whole scenario. It's like, it shouldn't have been like that.
To be fair, there was a cop there that asked multiple times, like, hey, should we roll him over? Should we put him on his side? And Chauvin said, like, that's why we called the ambulance or something like that. I think the case in Rochester, New York, like the guy wasn't, there was no knee on his neck. Like the guy just died. It doesn't, like, once you get to that state, it doesn't actually matter. Right. So like when you get to that state of excited delirium, the stress is either going to push you over the top or you're going to have a shitty time for like 30 minutes. So I don't know. Look, man, we're all trying to figure this out, just the same as everybody else is. So, well, I guess we'll see. It should be interesting. Bigger than OJ, I think. So let's talk women in the military.
Yeah, let's get your ass canceled.
Yeah, exactly. So look, let me just throw out the disclaimers real quick. This hasn't been a debate since the 90s. I mean, there's small portions of this that pop up.
A lot of the videos I found on this are from 2015 when they opened during Obama's thing, they opened up the combat to women. Yeah.
Combat roles. Yeah. So I mean, there's variations of it. But I mean, I'm literally going to start talking about like, should they be in the military at all? Let me just like right now, I have a whole bunch of provocative things I'm going to go through. I was in the military. I don't believe most of this stuff, but I think there's interesting arguments here, right? I don't take any of these arguments seriously. So if you're getting offended by this, just fucking relax. Don't take yourself so seriously. I'm trying not to. So we just lost all of our audience. You're frozen for me. That's why I'm kind of stuttering here. Are we still live? I am so sorry.
I'm seeing us live, and I'm seeing myself move on there still.
Okay. Am I moving?
And you're coming through to me fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Pushing through then. All right. So let's talk about this. All right. So when I was in the military, right, for 6 years, I actually brought this up with a couple of my good friends at the time, and they were not too happy about it, being women as they were. But we had good
as they were. So we're gonna have a trans talk afterwards.
I don't know, man. Just trying to be.
Are they still women?
Well, I'm just talking about him in the past tense.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, so
Chris
So-
isn't here, so I had to throw it out a little bit.
I know.
For those that don't know, Chris doesn't he doesn't want us to talk about the trans rights and stuff because it's such a sensitive topic.
All right, don't tell everybody.
Don't tell. Oh, I'm sorry. Delete that. We're live.
Okay, so let's get into it. So let me just preface this with a little bit of a story of my time in the military, right? So my experience in the military has been that women actually do generally pretty well, right? Especially in the Navy, right? I just want to put this out here real quick. So from the top, women do pretty well in the military, especially in the Navy where you don't have to do combat, right? There's some rates that you need to be slinging heavy stuff around, but most of the women can handle it, right? It's mostly not a problem. So there are some wedge issues that we'll get into, but I just kind of want to take it from the top, like let's pretend that women are in the military. Do you think
women
that
are or aren't? Do you say pretend they're not?
Let's go hypothetical right now. Let's say that women aren't in the military.
Are not. Okay.
Are not right
Yeah.
now, and they're saying should women be in the military? Do you think that's a good idea? Right, and why or why not? So let me preface this in a very specific way. And a lot of people get really mad at this argument, and I understand why, because I'm an American too. I get it. Very specifically, if we right now have an all male force, how does the military's capability increase? Get better from where it is or stay the same by adding women in?
Okay.
Right.
So before I answer that, I want to counter that question.
Yep.
So let's take a hypothetical and say the U.S. workforce doesn't have any women in it.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's different. but go
Should
ahead.
we or should we not allow women to work? How would a woman bring anything additional to the workforce?
So there are differences for the military that don't apply to the civilian sector, right? And
I agree. I agree there's differences.
Right. So for example, if you're talking about
And we're talking about military as a whole right now, not just frontline combat, right?
yes, and so this is where you can
Right.
hang me up. This is why my argument probably isn't that good, and why I don't really care about this one. Right. So there has to be an argument. You have to what people are not getting, and what people didn't understand about Tucker Carlson's argument last week is that this is our military, right? So when you are changing the composition, you need to be very, very careful about what you're doing, right? If you're changing something, you need to be either making a neutral change that doesn't change the fighting capability, or you need to be increasing the capability, right? And so my contention is going to be, let's say with specifically women on the front line, that you are not increasing, you are probably decreasing our capability with frontline, replacing what would have been a frontline man with frontline woman, right?
Well,
And I get this.
I think
We don't like that. I get it. I understand how it feels, but I'm
videos,
saying, I want somebody right here in front of me with a rifle that is capable of killing. And I know it sounds sexist, but it's going to be a man 10 out of 10 times.
so.
right.
Here's my thought on that. First off, I think, okay, I want to pull up this video before anything else. This actually applies pretty good to here. If I can find the right one here while I'm talking. It's here we go. Okay. This is from 2015. Let me know if you
Results
can
this
hear
morning
this.
of a one-of-a-kind Marine Corps experiment that will help determine the future of women in combat. The study compared men and women fighting side by side. The final report released yesterday says men performed significantly better and got hurt less often. Jan Crawford is in Washington with the story.
So they did this study, right?
Yeah.
And I guess if you watch this whole article, we can put a link in the comments. It goes into it a little bit more, and maybe we'll be able to kick back over to it. But the short of it is, they did a study where they had a man and woman combined unit and an all male unit out in the field. I don't know if this was actual live or this was just in training.
Yes.
I can't recall. But in all aspects, the all male squad did better. And they talk about some of the potential reasons, and they have some of the women soldiers on there saying, like, look, I could carry the pack, I was able to finish everything I needed to do, but I couldn't keep up with the male counterpart that I was next to. So I think that on average, for sure, when you're talking about some of these more physical requiring aspects of the military, that there is an advantage for males. And but at the same time, so there are definitely going to be males.
Not just strength. Aggression as well, not just strength.
Yeah, but
I'm willing to.
I think that what this shows is that on average, this is true, and I think that that's probably what everyone's gut feeling is, right? And that's kind of what Tucker Carlson is probably going towards. But I also think that there's going to be men in that platoon that couldn't have kept up with some of the women, but because they're a male, they're able to do this.
Small case.
Yeah. So.
Right. So look, if you then, like, let's do this then. If you took all of those women out, and then you took all of the men out, and then you put them and you made a half a division each, and then you pitted them together, are you going to tell me that the women are going to beat the men at all? Is it even going to
say that again?
So if you took those men,
if it's a male versus women, men versus women thing,
take the integrated people out of this unit, and then you pitch them against each other. Which person? I mean, like I know people are just getting mad at me, and I can.
It's going to depend. It's going to depend on the challenge, right? I mean, that's
death.
No, I mean,
yes, that's the challenge.
If it depends on what the comparison is. If you're talking about frontline, like stamina, weight carrying capacity, right, like that type of stuff, right? Then yes, I agree. I think it's most likely that the male group is going to.
Okay, so stop right there, and now extrapolate that in. So why would you then take an all male unit and sprinkle it in with women? Are you increasing the efficiency? And
it's the other way around. First is important to say. I think it's that they're sprinkling women in with a male unit. It wasn't that it was a predominantly woman or male.
Oops.
No, I think that's important to say, because my argument is that I think we are excluding talented, capable people from the military by just saying women can't be part of it. Even though on average they perform less, there are significant numbers of women that are able to perform better than the majority of men. So
there are a few women, right? So, I mean, the differences in upper body strength, for example, are like massively different. Like me, I barely work out, but even before I worked out, I would be able to beat almost like punching strength, especially. And I know that's not particularly relevant, but I'm using it as an example. Like your average scrawny, weak male can outpunch 99% of women. There's stats on this. I am slightly pulling that out of my ass, but there's hard statistics on that. Like male upper body strength is just like light years ahead of women, right? And then there's
I want to see you go head to head with Carano.
Right, but okay. So now, like I just said, 99%.
I know, but the point is, like, I don't know that it's 99%. I'd like to see the percentages.
Yes, yeah.
I guess my point is, like, by just saying because you're a woman or because you're a man or because you're purple, I don't care what the reason is, right? Like, because of this particular thing that isn't a direct correlation to what we're trying to do, you can't be part of this. And I don't think that's right. Now, I also, and we talked about this, I'm 100% for, equal testing, like for whatever the role is, right?
Yes. So
for whatever the role is, this is how capable you have to fucking be, right?
Yeah. And
if you're that capable, you're in.
You know what the thing is, Tim? Like 2 women would pass male standards. Like 2
women were in the Rangers. They passed the Ranger standards.
Correct ratio.
Well, right, so most men don't. What is the Ranger fail-out rate? Like 60% or 70% or something? So those 2 women did better than 70% of men that were in the military, which I would argue is a very high standard of physical ability for men in general.
Listen, you're taking the extreme to defeat the main purpose, which is that on average men are way stronger in their upper body than women.
I'm not disagreeing with that. What I'm saying is because let me say it again. Just because they, on average, they aren't as strong, doesn't mean you should exclude those that are capable if they want to perform.
Correct. So the problem. Okay. So the problem then becomes, right. So what Tim said is absolutely correct, and I would say that the solution to this is to implement universal standards, right? And then you do actual studies, because this was I almost guarantee it was a politically correct study where they had the preconceived outcome.
It was performed by the military, so I'm guessing they were legit trying to find out. Like, now,
the military is very full of PC people. Officers are college graduates. That's all they are. So, look. So the point would be, my only point. My point actually has nothing to do with sex. My point is that there shouldn't be different standards for men and women. Right? There shouldn't be different standards for anybody except for by age range. Right? So if women can actually A, pass these standards, and then B, be as effective as the male in their roles, then I have absolutely no problem.
I don't think that. I think it should be if they can pass these standards. Right?
And
it's like,
as effective. Why would you accept a lowering of the an average lowering of efficiency or effectiveness?
Either the test is not the correct test, or passing the test is sufficient to perform the duties.
Okay.
So either fix the test or use that as your guideline.
I don't know if you can. So, like, I don't know how to test for that, though, right? So if you were to
Test
say,
for what?
if you were to say that, okay, so we have the women in here that can pass the male PT, and we've done it that way. So there's a few women in the battalion, and then you say, here we have this integrated one and this non-integrated one, and despite the fact that they can do the same on the physical test, the women aren't aggressive enough or something like that, and they become they lower, like they're getting people killed because they're not, doing whatever, or they're folding in combat, or they can't drag this 6'1", 190-pound man.
So my understanding of what was happening in this particular test was, they all passed the male PT, right? The physical test or whatever that was. But what is like the chance that a female passed it with flying colors was a lot lower than if a male did, right? Mm-hmm. But they still passed it. And so either you make the argument that all the males that didn't pass it with flying colors also aren't suitable for the military and should be taken out, or just passing the test, regardless if you're male or female, is okay. So what, like, let's say all the women were in the bottom.
If the male can't pass the test, he's out.
I know, but what I'm saying is there's males that barely pass the test that make it in, as well as females. But the way I think this is happening is there's very few females that like blow the test out of the water, right?
Correct.
A lot of them may struggle to pass it, barely pass it, moderately, but don't blow it out of the water, right? So you're basically taking a group of people that aren't exceptional at those abilities and making a squad out of a large number of them versus a squad that has a much broader spectrum of capabilities, some of them that blew it out of the water and some of them that also, passed barely, and comparing the two. And so my argument is that just because they performed a little bit worse or fairly worse or whatever it ended up being, they performed worse, doesn't mean that they aren't suitable or capable to be in the field in the first place. And if they aren't capable, then the test they passed isn't suitable to determine that, and it needs to be corrected, which may also exclude more males from being in.
Maybe. And in the future, right, it looks like we're integrating anyways. So, like, my point is that we're about to start testing them in real situations, right? So if people are honest and not politically correct, and a legitimate study is done about the effectiveness of integrated units versus non-integrated units, and it turns out that they're just as effective, then I swear to God, people, I'm not sexist. I have no problem with it. I just have a hard time believing it, right? Because I saw so many things in the military, right? I went through boot camp, and 2 months after it, there was a woman who graduated. I think she graduated a couple weeks after I did, and she got stationed at the same base I did. This woman couldn't do a single push-up, right? So it's not only that their standard.
That doesn't seem like a equal standard then.
Correct.
Unless push-ups not required to be in the Navy.
trying to tell you, Tim, is that not only are the standards lower, but they don't get held to the standards most of the time, right? So it's, a lot of times they get pushed through boot camp, right? So look, okay, so we're talking about that kind of effectiveness. Like, fine, if you can prove to me that women are effective, right? Or even it's not just that women are effective, right? If you have an individual who you can test that can do the thing and do it as well as the average male, fine, put him in.
Why? No. That's not a fair statement. That you can't say do it as well as the average male. It doesn't matter what the average can do. It matters if you can pass the fucking test. Right? It's not like, hey, you're a male and you didn't do as good as the average male, so you're out.
Now,
right?
If you're accepting a whole bunch of lower than average people, you are reducing your average.
But the military does that. That was the point I was trying to make. There are males that have no problem getting into the front line and being in combat that barely pass all of these tests.
Okay, you are using a very lawyerly definition of this whole thing, and what's going to end up happening is that people will fucking die, right? Because you're putting in a whole bunch of less than average people into these units. This is real, right? This is an actual art.
So I'm not saying that we should lower the standard by any means at all.
Okay, but the standard is lowered.
Well, at least in 2015, when most of the research that I was doing of these videos was coming up, they were not. And all of the military heads were saying that they were not going to be changing these standards and adjusting them so that women had lower standards, at least for being in combat in the front lines. And this was mostly targeted on the Marines because that's what this was in 2015. All the way through 2016 up until today, I'm going to guess women in the military didn't get a whole lot of movement because the Trump administration and the Secretary of State was against it. So I'm guessing they didn't come out in lower standards. So I feel like the standards are still going to be the same. And in all of these reports that I saw, they are the same for men and women. You have to pass this test or you're not in the front lines. You go do another thing.
They didn't either lower the standards for men so that they could just bump women up a little bit, and then the reason why I'm saying this, the reason why I sound so belligerent is I've seen videos not of Navy boot camp where it matters a little bit less. It still fucking matters because I need your ass to carry me out of a exploded room. But I've seen videos of the final phase of Marine boot camp, and these women can't get on the monkey bars.
And they don't pass.
No, they pass, man. These people are going out into the Marines.
Okay, so if that's the case, then the test allows them to, and the test, and based on your opinion, it needs to be corrected. It's not a matter of sex. It's a matter of the test being incorrect.
And so this is what it comes down to. Like, so everybody who's angry at me right now for this, like, what it actually comes down to is like again, if the things that I've seen are wrong, right, and I've seen a lot of things, but if it's just like my world is just sort of lined up where I just happen to see all these things, and maybe I have a bias and I'm looking for it or whatever, like I'm actually willing to change my opinion. Like if that unit is as effective, I'm for it. Like I have no problem with women in the military. As a matter of fact,
let me give you a carrot. Let me give you one that'll help get your point across to show that it's not about sex for you, maybe, or you're going to completely bury yourself. One of the two.
Yeah. I got my shovel.
All right, so you have a woman who passed the test plus 25%. I don't fucking know. Right? Okay. And you have a male that passed the test plus 10%. Right? So the woman passed it better than the male.
Yep.
And you have a choice of who's going to be standing next to you on the battlefield. Which one are you going to pick?
That woman.
Right. Exactly.
Right. It depends on the test too, right? Maybe
I'm talking in generals, right? Like their overall capability.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what the test is supposed to be from a physical standpoint, right? It includes stamina, strength, agility,
Right. Yeah, in their final test just does break some of that stuff down. Their final test is supposed to measure some of that. And like that's some of the stuff that I saw too, right? I saw a side-by-side comparison with an all-male unit going through that last test and then an integrated unit going through that final like sort of like hell 3 days that they go through. And it's just like there was just like no urgency in the integrated unit. Like everybody's just kind of like flopping around and like moving slowly, and it's like get on the ground, and they would just be like And then like you looked at the all male unit and they were just like, whoop-a! They're like crawling around. Okay, so yeah, I'm a little biased, but listen, man, look, if you can get them up to standards, then I have no problem with it. If the units are just as effective, I have no problem with it. And that was actually Tucker Carlson's point. Now I have another point.
So, but I think there's one more point I want to make on that, and one I want to clarify.
Yeah.
So the unit being just as effective, I think to do that, you have to be careful to put people in the unit like an equal distribution of skill, right? And so let's say on average, men pass with a higher, ability in all these tests, right? Men are on average better at these tasks. Doesn't mean women can't do them and aren't going to be able to be, suitable. So, but on average, they're not as good. And then you fill half of a battalion or whatever with women. You just now filled it with half of the population, most likely not being as good as the average of the other half that you're comparing it against, right? So it's not a fair comparison in that standpoint, because you're immediately isolating and putting in a battalion a large number of people that may on average perform at a lower level. Second to that, is it a piece that how do I want to say this? You're saying it in a way that's like, if I have a woman in combat, then I don't have a better male. And is that a fair comparison? Or
it's an on
or is it? Well, no. I'm saying or is it that you can just have an additional person, right? If you have an additional person, is that not just better than not having them in the first place? And that's what I'm asking as an unknowing, right? I don't know how that works.
Yeah, it's not that like you. It's not that battalions are now larger because women are joining. Your battalion's still the same. You still get deployed with the same amount of people. It's just that now the distribution is every.
Well, there should be. Are we turning people away from joining the military? Yes. So more people want to join than the military wants.
Recruiting quotas and dropping out of boot camp. Dropping out of boot camp is a small part of it. Most people make it through boot camp. So
right. Okay. So the people that. So for the people that you're recruited, and okay, so I'm a young guy, and I go up and say, hey, I want to join the military, and they say, hey, no, we're not recruiting anymore. We filled our quota for the year. Or do they pretty much take anyone that wants to get recruited?
Well, it's not like it's pretty well planned out. So like your scenario doesn't happen where it's like, well, we're done for the year, but it's quota based. It's literally quota based. It's like, hey man, I need you to get me 10 more sailors by the end of November or something like that, So it's like they
stop pushing so hard, but if you wanted in, you'd probably be able to get in anyway.
Lower the incentive bonuses for signing, or whatever it is.
The reason I'm asking is maybe a battalion's the same size, but now you have 2 battalions instead of 1 or something, right?
Yeah, it's not how it works. The U.S. military generally it just flexes for mission operational capacity, right? So they're just looking to fill in the seats that they need. So women in that case, right? Again, sounds horrible, but yes, the hypothetical woman would be taking the place of a man.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to understand how that works. How are they taking the place of somebody? So you wanted to join the military, but they got a girl instead, and somehow you don't get to. Is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, why would you get 2? They only have
No. You don't get. I'm talking about you. You don't get. You're not able to. You're not. You now don't get to join.
Yeah.
Right. So you're a male. You want to join. You go up and you try and get recruited, and they say, "Sorry, we just got the last seat. You don't get to join."
No, that's not really what happens. They kind of look. It's a little difficult.
So how is more? I guess I'm trying to understand. How does more women wanting to be and then being able to be in the military reduce the number of men that's in the military?
I don't know how big a battalion is, but let's just say it's 100. I think it's 100, but actually it might be way larger. But whatever it is, division, whatever the heck. I don't know what the Marine uses. The point is not really recruitment or the size of the army. It's that in a given engagement, you're only putting a set amount, right? And you only have a set amount that you brought here. It's not, you don't increase, it's like, oh, now we have women, our army's twice the size, so now we're going to make this engagement twice the size. That's not how it works. You're just going to have to take my word for it.
No, I think I agree. Okay, I see what you're saying. And so on specific cases like, hey, we're running this mission, we want, one ranger crew to go in, or we want one whatever. But
example, right? There's not more rangers now that women are joining. There may be.
Rangers is but
example, there probably are more because the more people you put through the
there's more, but they're not necessarily being used more on any specific mission.
There's going to be class selections for that. You have to apply to get into that, and so there's a certain set of.
That's a specific one where there is a limit, probably. But regardless, the point still applies where they're like, "Hey, we're sending one unit, and a unit is 6 people or whatever it is, and that's that." But I think in other cases where you're like, if I'm just thinking of it from being maybe a general, or I'm playing a video game, Total War or something. If I've got 5 archers, I might send 3 over here and 2 over there. But if I had 10, I wouldn't be like, oh, well, I'm still only going to send 3 over here and 2 over there, and I'm just going to keep 5 to fuck around with over here and do nothing with, right? So
it's not how that works.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's go for a couple more minutes since we started late, I guess.
Yeah.
So this other one, I'm just burying myself today. I'm sorry, everybody who used to like me. It's okay. I'm a contemptible human being. But I have another huge issue. And the women that I talk to in the military also have an issue with this because it looks bad on them. But they're just like, it's the same thing. It's like, it's the contemptible thing of people getting out of duty. So a big problem that I have is women who go into the military and get pregnant and then get pregnant again and get pregnant again. Right. So my first contention that I'm not too married to is that if you go into the military on a 4-year contract and you get pregnant, you should get kicked out immediately for breach of contract. Immediately. Right.
Let me ask you a question on that. If you you sign a 4-year contract and you on your leave or off time, I don't really know how it works. You're driving your car around and you're being reckless and you get in a car accident and it injures you and you're out of service for a couple months. Should you get kicked out of the service?
It depends. If you have a permanent disability, you will get kicked out on disability.
No, not permanent. Like just break your arm or something.
You're fine.
Yeah. So you are allowed to go out and fuck around and make a mistake that ends up breaking your arm, but it's fine to stay in the service. But if you're a woman and you go around and you go make a mistake and fuck around and get pregnant, you should be kicked out.
There's a distinction. So the distinction is that you chose to get pregnant, generally speaking, most of the time. Almost all of the time, you chose to get pregnant. And then
tell that to my parents who have 3 kids that didn't want them.
That's fun. That's Ohio, ladies and gentlemen. No,
that happens a lot. Like, imagine how low the population would be if you actually had to be like, "Yep, I want a kid now. I can only have one if I want one."
Yeah, look, it sounds like a sex education problem, but look, man, look. This is personal responsibility. You signed a contract with the U.S. government. If you're having unprotected sex and at risk of getting pregnant, that's your fault.
So my example applies the same. If you're driving recklessly and you get in an accident and break your arm, you're in breach of contract.
So if you get charged with reckless driving that broke your arm, you're probably getting kicked out, or you're going to captain's mast and you're losing pay. Right? That doesn't apply. Like if you get in an accident that was not your fault, you're not getting kicked out of the military. If you were reckless driving and it was proved to be so, you're getting kicked out, or you're going to captain's mast and getting docked 2 months.
Okay, so let me say you choose to go skiing and you have an accident where you fall or hit a tree. Like, it doesn't have to be a crime, right? You chose to do a risky activity similar to having sex unprotected, and the bad situation came out of it. You're saying, well, because you chose to have sex, you should get kicked out of the military, but it's okay that you chose to do a different activity and you get to stay in.
Okay, so you're treating sex like something that largely happens to you by chance, like a skiing accident.
No. So I'm saying that I've had unprotected sex several times in my life and I never got anyone pregnant, right? A lot of times people don't go into having unprotected sex like, man, I can't wait to have a kid, right? I'm saying that's not it's a known risk, but it doesn't happen often or all the time or, whatever. It's not. I don't think it's a fair thing to say. Well, you had unprotected sex, so you should.
Look, man. I have no sympathy. Right? I have no sympathy.
Have you never had unprotected sex in your life?
I'm not answering that question. Of course.
I mean, the point is, like, most people that I know have, and if you haven't, good on you. Super, respect. I don't know how you did it, but respect. Like, look, I don't understand how doing that should result in you getting kicked out of the military.
Right, because you're out.
Hold on. Okay, should the male say the male was also in the military with her, should he get kicked out? He made the same mistake.
No, but he didn't. Right. So the risk is different for him, and this is where male privilege can come in. Right. So he got someone pregnant. He's not pregnant. Right. He can still do full duty. He can do whatever he was hired to do by the Navy, full time, no problem. Right.
Yeah, I think that's a fair distinction.
He should. And he's just going to get like a month, or it was like 3 weeks of paternity leave. That's it, right? So sure, male privilege there.
Yeah.
But again, I have no sympathy for getting pregnant. So that's just so you argued pretty well. I'm actually wishy-washy on that one, right? So I'm not so firm on that one. But here's where I am firm. There are cases of where women come in and they get serially pregnant, right? So they come in as a radar technician or electronics technician, and they get years of training or months and months of training, and their job that they were trained to do is to go out to sea, deploy on a ship, fix radars, be useful to the military. But sometimes I saw several cases of this, like right from the get-go, like right out of boot camp, where a woman will she'll get pregnant, and you're like, okay, well, that was pretty unfortunate. And then she does it again, and then she does it again. They have like 3 kids until it's time to get out of the military. And meanwhile, they had full benefits, full pay, didn't get kicked out. I think those women without.
So is your contention that they
come out
are getting pregnant on purpose? And I don't know. I guess I'm trying to think how I want to ask this. Let me ask it a different way. A different question. I'll come back to that if I can think about how I want to ask it. Do you know who Amy McGrath is? I'm guessing you probably do, but maybe not. She ran against. I believe she's the one that ran against Mitch McConnell in Kentucky.
Yeah.
And had billions of dollars poured into her campaign. She's a military girl. She was in the military for all. I guess she was the first woman to fly in a combat mission. I think something like that. She had 3 kids in the military.
So we're coming up to an important difference, right? So there are obvious scammers, right? Who they go in their first 4 years, they get pregnant 3 times, and they're useless the whole time, right? Because that's 9 months where you're on light duty, not doing your job, and then the 3 weeks or 4 weeks of maternity leave. And those people are very clearly gaming the system, right? Those people kicked out immediately. I actually I have a different standard for people who sign back on again. Because now you're dedicating probably like 20 years of your life, 30 years of your life. Yeah, yes, absolutely. Have a family. I'm not talking about those people.
Gotcha. Okay.
Respect, right? I didn't sign back on. I had huge problems with the Navy. It was just a bummer. But so anybody who signs back on, I got respect for you. I guess depending on who you are, looking at you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to that point, like I thought that was an important thing to say because
it is.
I mean, she was a military. I don't want to say lifer because now she's in politics, but long termer, right? And she takes so much pride in the military. And I have a clip of her talking, but I don't have it set at the right time. Is what I wanted. I accidentally clicked on it. So, because she's talking about the women in the military thing. Going off on Tucker Carlson a little bit, saying, women are not a mockery. We've done so much in the military and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but if you get a chance, you can watch her clip. I think it was on MSNBC. It's pretty interesting to watch her talk. But she brings up, she's like, look, I had 3 children while I was in the military. She's like, we're family people. We want, we're military people. Like, we respect all the women that are going through the same giving. Imagine, like, I truly believe women have a stronger connection to their children than the husbands do, the men do, right?
Sexist.
I know, right? Yeah, totally sexist against men to say that we don't have as strong of a connection. I mean, I love my kids more than I love anything in the world, right? Like, I would And I still think my wife's love for them is probably in excess of mine. And I've never felt love like that in my life before having kids. Right. So, for a woman to then be able to, deploy or get away from them or have to, or like, that's, intense. And to have that dedication, like,
Yep.
I think that's something that should be, thought about and respected, as you said. So that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, I guess. So I guess maybe my rule would be if you get pregnant multiple times in your first 4 years, you should get booted out. But after that, that's fair.
I think your point of intent is important, right? Like, is your intent to scam the system? Well, then you're a piece of shit, right? It's and to the point you made earlier, intent's hard to prove sometimes, but most of the time.
Point of difference, I actually don't care about intent. In the first 3 years, if you get pregnant twice, like, I don't give a shit. You're too dumb. Get out. All right, I think that's us. I think that's time. So thank you everybody for hanging out with us. I know it's another long one, another one without Chris. He'll be back next week, so I'm sure we'll get crazy and wild with that. For those who are listening, thanks for stopping by. I see that we have a lot of fans in Australia, actually, which is fascinating. I hear you guys really get down with the culture wars, so I'm very excited to see you guys listening. So hopefully we're keeping it woke for you. All right.
They're just here for the logic, my friend. Just all for the logic.
For me, right? All right, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. Remember to throw some comments up there if you think I'm a raging sexist. Well, both of us, honestly. I mean, that last little bit right there. Tim was trying to get in on cancellation action.
I can't let you be canceled all by yourself.
Right, yeah. Misery loves company. Comment, like, subscribe. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Peace.